And hello, everyone, and welcome back to our 2026 Senate preview and analysis videos. And today we are looking at the state of Georgia, a seat currently held by the Democratic Party, and the first term incumbent Senator John Ossoff, who is seeking a second term in office. At the beginning of the cycle, this looked like it was going to be one of the tougher races in the country. But as the election season played out, it's become apparent that there are going to be much tougher races across the country, and this one should be fairly uh, uneventful, so to say, but it still will be significant. So in 2020, John Ossoff won election to the United States Senate in that pivotal runoff against former Senator David Perdue by just over 1%. In 2020, Joe Biden won the state of Georgia by less than a percentage point. And in 2024, Georgia flipped back to the Republican Party with Donald Trump winning the state by just over 2%. So Georgia has shown by electing two Democrats to the United States in 2020, voting for Joe Biden in 2020, electing a Republican, re-electing a Republican governor in 22, and electing Senator Warnock, a Democrat, to a full term in 2022, that it is a very pivotal and swing state. Georgia is, in all intents and purposes, America's newest, swingiest state. John Ossoff is the Democratic nominee. He's the current incumbent senator. He won renomination to a second term without opposition. There was some question going into 2025, would Ossoff seek re-election? Some people thought that he might not seek re-election, but Ossoff has sought re-election, has ran a very unique campaign where he goes home on the weekend, campaigns, has viral moments that are clipped all week on the internet, and really fundraises off those clips. Ossoff has been very dialed in on constituent services. Um, every story about his constituent services that you read notes how he gets praised for his constituent services, and he really invested in that going into the Senate. He has led several key efforts in the Senate, mainly focused initially on reforming the BOP and serious mismanagement in the BOP. Atlanta is home to a federal prison, a quite infamous federal prison, and Ossoff chaired a subcommittee into rooting out issues at that federal prison. Ossoff has not been one to blanket cable news with interviews. He does occasionally appear on cable news, but he has been more about putting his nose to the ground and doing the work. Ossoff is sometimes painted as a moderate and a blue dog Democrat, and that is not the case. John Ossoff is a very progressive Democrat, and I think the reason perceive him as a moderate or a blue dog is because he comes from a swing state. Now, Ossoff has offended your more progressive side of the party on some votes, but typically Ossoff has voted very much in line with Democratic leadership and a liberal voting record. The Republican nominee is Mike Collins. And Mike Collins is a congressman from Georgia currently. He is the son of a former member of Congress and was a businessman before getting elected to Congress. Collins went into the family business, which is politics and the trucking business. And Collins likes to portray himself as a self-made man, but that's only part of the story. Collins, like Ossoff, comes from a very successful family, and both were very lucky in the fact that they could pursue careers in things that interested them, and politics obviously was that, because they came from wealthy backgrounds. Um, Collins is a very conservative congressman, and comes from the more MAGA-friendly wing of the Republican Party. There have been ethics investigations into his management of his congressional office, and questions about his judgment because of some of his Twitter habits. And very active on social media, very much leaning into the belief of that drives the conversation in politics today, and has had a couple instances on the campaign trail where that has come back to bite him. The Republican contest for the Republican nomination was anything but a coronation. There were three candidates that were in serious contention: Collins, former University of Tennessee football coach Derek Dooley, and Buddy Carter. And Collins and Derek Dooley went to a runoff, and Dooley had the backing of Brian Kemp, the incumbent Republican governor, who really was responsible for making the Republican contest so competitive. In 2025, Kemp surprised a lot of people by bowing out of the race, not seeking the Republican nomination for Senate. Most people believed if Kemp had gotten into the race, that he would have won the Republican nomination and made the general election contest a slugfest. But Kemp passed. In his place, though, Derek Dooley, the former football coach at the University of Tennessee and son of Georgia football legend Vince Dooley, ran, and he had the backing of Kemp. And it became a runoff between Mike Collins and Derek Dooley. And days before the runoff vote, Donald Trump endorsed Collins, and that was all she wrote. Collins went on to win the nomination. Now, Trump didn't pitch a shutout in Georgia. His pick for governor in the primary lost. Burt Jones lost to Rick Jackson. But in the Senate race, it was decisive. Let's take a look at the totals for each primary. About a million voters, just over a million voters cast votes in the Republican primary, or sorry, in the Democratic primary, and just over 900,000 voters cast votes in the Republican primary. Both parties had competitive primaries for governor, lieutenant governor, and constitutional offices. And obviously, the Republicans had a competitive primary for Senate. The Democrats did not. But the level of competitive races on the Democratic side and the Republican side were comparable, with one exception. So that came out to a 53% to 46% spread. 53% of primary voters cast ballots in the Democratic primary, and 46% cast votes in the Republican primary. And one of the things you can gauge from this is that Democrats in Georgia are much more motivated to vote. Democrats were much more eager to get out and punch a ballot for their favored candidates, and Republicans were. So, how do I think this race is? Where do I think this race is going? As I said, I thought if you were asking me in the spring of 2025, Where I thought this race was going, I would have told you it was going to be one of the most expensive and competitive Senate races in the country, that Democrats and Republicans both would have to spend a whole lot of money in Georgia, and you would see an all-out brawl. I don't think so. I think the Republicans nominated a very weak candidate in Mike Collins, who has tremendous baggage, combined with the fact that the Democrats renominate, Ossoff sought a second term, and was unopposed for renomination. And I think that, combined with the fact of the record he's built up in the Senate, and uh, just a betony of good political fortunes, Ossoff is very much en route to winning a second term by a comfortable margin. Um, Ossoff um, has put in the work in the Senate. I think Georgia voters are going to recognize that. Republicans are not motivated to go out and vote. They are very dissatisfied at the moment. And the political environment in swing states right now is is such that it favors Democrats. Uh, Many voters are probably having buyer's remorse about giving Donald Trump a second chance in those states. So my belief at the moment is, unless something dramatic happens, that John Ossoff's going to win a very comfortable re-election victory. It's probably not going to be very close. I think that 53-46 split from the primary may hold. Ossoff may go, up into the 54-55 range, which would be, dramatic. And I think it's possible. You could see a split decision in Georgia again on the gubernatorial race and the Senate election. But if we get Ossoff up into the territory of 55, you know, percent of the vote, he could raise all boats and pull Democrats across the line in many other races. So at the moment, my belief is that John Ossoff is well on his way to a comfortable re-election. And that would be a hold for the Democratic Party. So I thank you all for coming here and taking a trip with me to the Peach State.